Therefore, yeah. So I'm going to go direct to the questions from this sample book. Let me just go direct to the questions. It's a questions. Okay. Okay, questions. So general pathology short essay questions. So this book, you all have it. So by the way, we're not talking about cellular injury or cellular adaptations because these ones we've talked about them a lot. And the videos are there in the groups on Telegram. You can find the videos there about cellular adaptation. We talked about atrophy, hypertrophy, all those, you need to know them. You need to know their definitions and examples. So this was our question last week. Is that a knock? Doc, check. Like there's somebody outside. Okay, so we discussed all those adaptations, and we also talked about the types of injury. We talked about if the injury is mild or severe, and we mentioned that there are two types of death in which the cells can die. We talked about we talked about necrosis, apoptosis last time. Okay, give me a minute, just a minute. Okay. Oh, there is sound. Okay, please remember that I'm new in the group. Okay, so yeah, I know that, Madam Patricia Msendo. Okay, so actually, Madam Msendo, we've been doing the pathology for quite some time, and we've discussed so far a lot of things concerning the cellular injury and also the introduction to pathology. So we discussed all those things, and they are there in groups. There are videos because actually I did them online. So the videos are still pending there. You can watch them that side. If you can't find them, I'm going to send them to you again. That's the fact. So it's the same thing that we did online. So if they ask you for, these are the questions that came, by the way, the last test that we had. So about cellular adaptation, these ones we did. We did the hypertrophy, atrophy, metaplasia, and also the other adaptations. We discussed those. So now, again, the good example that can be asked is which one is this? Anyway, let's proceed. Name the 4 basic aspects of disease processes. We talked about these ones. We talked about etiology, pathogenesis. We talked about clinical changes or clinical manifestations. There are 4 basic aspects. So you need to know all those things, because I got these papers from the past papers. Define hypertrophy, you see? So meaning that if you don't know right now the definition of hypertrophy, or maybe let me just put it in simpler manner, if you don't know the cellular adaptations, it means that you're not ready for the test. So by now you should have known what is the definitions of all these cellular adaptations. The four, in fact, there are about 5, but the other one is not considerable. So define atrophy, we know this. And please know the examples. So if you want to really understand this, you need to go back to to Telegram, you check for the videos, you watch them again, and then you'll be able to answer these questions very well. So now my emphasis today is on the cell injury. How does the cell react? How does it react to injury? Because this one is the one that came in our exam, the first exam paper that was prepared, and then it tricked, so we didn't light it. It is about cell injury, the depletion of the deprivation of oxygen to the tissue. It might be ischemia. So we'll discuss that actually in a while. Tell the causes of cell injury. So today I'm actually focusing on the cell injury part, because last time we discussed all the cellular adaptation, and we mentioned that if anything, if the insult or any injurious agent continues or it is severe on the tissue, it means that cell will undergo cell injury. And we said that the injury can be reversible or non-reversible depending on the severity of the insult. Yeah. So tell the causes of cell injury we discussed. So we are going there right now. We are going there. Let's just answer these questions. So number 1 is they are saying define cell injury. From there, the causes of cell injury. Okay. From there, what are the cellular responses to injury, and what is the pattern of the cell death? There are 2 types of cell death. We talked about apoptosis and necrosis. We said apoptosis is a programmed cell death, while necrosis is unprogrammed cell death, and we discussed the differences. We also discussed the differences, the different types of necrosis. We talked about liquefactive necrosis, coagulative necrosis. We talked about the other specific examples or types of necrosis and the specific examples where that occurs. Okay, classify necrosis with examples. This question usually comes, so you'll find it in your paper. Okay, so let's dive in now. Let's start now. Okay, sure. Let's start. One second, just see. So cell injury, okay. So this one we discussed as well. The video is still there. Just that it's a bit complicated, so I brought it up so that people can really understand it now. So cell injury and death. Okay. So we mentioned last time that when the cell gets injured, what happens is that to undergo what you call when the cell gets injured, we said that it will undergo what you call adaptation, meaning that it will adapt to the environment or to the specific things that are there, or the physiological conditions. We talked about the muscle. People who go to the gym, they go there, and what happens is that they increase the physiological need, the physiological needs of the muscle tubules or the muscle cells, or we call them myofibrils. So what happens is that when you increase that physiological need, the muscle will undergo what you call hypertrophy. It will adapt. It will undergo hypertrophy, or it will undergo atrophy. If there is any reduction in physiological need, it will undergo what you call atrophy. So now it depends on the type of the adaptation that the cell can go into. But if you talk about this gymnastics, people go to the gym. What happens is that there is an increase in physiological demand, those things that they lift. So they are lifting those heavy things. what happens is that the physiological demands increase. And when that happens, the muscle won't be able to, let me just say, the muscle cells want to stay in those conditions. They will need more proteins, they will need more energy, they will need more different types of substances for them to grow and for them to operate in that manner. So what happens is that they will undergo what to call cell adaptation. And we mentioned 4 cell adaptations. We talked about atrophy, hypertrophy, metaplasia, and also atrophy. Hyperplasia, hypertrophy, atrophy, and metaplasia. These are 4 specific examples of cell adaptations, and we defined each. The videos are still there; they're intact in the on the Telegram group. So now, having known that, we are saying that when the cell fails to adapt, when it fails to adapt, for example, the gymnastic is muscle fails to adapt. What will happen is that the cell will die off, or it will get injured, because it can't adapt. It can't sustain such kind of an injury. The injury is just progressive. The insult is not stopping. So what happens is that it will undergo what you call cell injury. And we mentioned that there are 2 types of injury. We talked about it being reversible or non-reversible. We said that this injury can be just reversible if at all the insults are reducing in quantity. But if you are increasing the insults on that particular tissue, what happens is that it will undergo cell death. That's what we said, and it will become irreversible. If it becomes irreversible, meaning that it can't return to its original state, and it will die off by necrosis or apoptosis. That's what we mentioned last time. So that's what we are starting now. We are saying that if the cells fail to adapt under stress, they undergo certain changes called cell injury. The affected cell may recover from the injury, which is reversible, or may die off. They only recover when you remove the injurious stimulus. So if the injurious stimulus is still progressive, is still there, still intact, meaning that your internet connection is okay. Sorry for that. So so the affected cells may recover from the injury, which is reversible, and they may die, and that is irreversible injury. Okay. So let's proceed. Let's proceed now. Let's talk about the same injury. What is it? So we've talked about the injury. What happens, or what we mean when we say the cell has been injured? It means that the cell has failed to adapt, meaning that it has failed to adapt because of the progressiveness or severity of the injurious agent or an insult. Okay. Causes of cell injury. Remember this question. Let me show you the question. In case you think that I'm joking, right? So there is this question. Tell the causes of cell injury. So this page we are opening now gives us the causes of cell injury. Let me just open them so that people can see. Okay. So causes of cell injury. So what causes the cell injury? Number 1, we talked about oxygen deprivation, what also called anoxia. Anoxia is okay. Let me put it in simpler manner. In this case, the oxygen. The cells do not have oxygen, so they are depriving of oxygen. So what will happen is that this cell will die off because it doesn't have oxygen. And remember what we talked about last time in biochemistry. We mentioned that oxygen is important. Oxygen is important in the production of ATP. That's what we said last time. So now, in the case that we don't have oxygen, what will happen is that that cell won't have energy and it may die off. So oxygen deprivation leads to cell injury. Okay, meaning anoxia in brackets. Physical agents, it might be trauma. Physical agents can be trauma. Maybe you get electrocuted from electricity. What happens is that maybe the cell may die off from that side, or that becomes an injurious agent. So any physical agents we talk about, for example, knife, for example, somebody can injure with a knife. Those are specifically good examples of the physical agents. How about chemical agents? The acid, somebody takes acids, or maybe something that is basic, or let me just say alkaline, something that is alkalinity or acidic. It will cause injury in the GIT mucosa. So those are also all causes of what? Cell injury. Infectious agents, we've got parasites, we have bacteria, we've got viruses, and also have the fungi. So, and then we've got immunological reaction. What happens is that you'll find that some specific, or sometimes the body itself can react to its own cells, and that is called autoimmune diseases. In such kind of particular instances, what it means is that the cell itself is attacking its own cell. So those are examples of immunological reaction. So all those can lead to cell injury because it will kill off the cells. Like what happens in some good specific examples of autoimmune diseases. You can talk about which disease is this? You can talk about Krebs disease, which happens to bring about goiter. You can talk about some other specific good examples of autoimmune disease that you know. And for now, you need to understand that autoimmune diseases are common in females and not in males. I do not know the reason, but that's what they say. So whenever you hear about what's this autoimmune, it means that it is more prominent in females. So we've talked about that one. Genetic defects all cause cell injury. Nutritional imbalances. I do not eat. Let me assume that I stop eating for 3 days. What will happen is that my cells will die of hunger. They will need to eat. They will starve, meaning that there will be nutritional imbalances, malnutrition. All those will lead to cell injury. So this is the question: oxygen deprivation, physical agents, chemical agents, infectious agents, immunological reactions, genetic defects, nutritional imbalances. All these they are a lot, by the way. It's a broad spectrum. It has a lot of components. But for now, understand that these are good examples of the causes of cell injury, and you need to know them because definitely this question can come. They will tell you to state 5 causes of cell injury, 5 marks. Pam, 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 pam. Just say physical agents, chemical agents. Chemicals are common. Infectious agents. Don't forget about the infectious because these ones are common. Virus, bacteria, fungi. Immunological reactions. Talk about autoimmune diseases. Genetic defects, you know this one is genetical. And nutrition imbalances, this one is also common. So hypoxia or anoxia, can talk about them. Okay, we proceed. So now, important targets of cell injury. What does this same very injurious agent target? I think this is what and I explained it last time. People, I'm sure people can't forget it. And people will be able to explain it to others. Otherwise, it's very important to understand. Now, let me show you something. Okay, this is the thing that summarizes everything that we'll talk about. What happens specifically? So let me annotate. Okay. Okay. So we assume that let's not even assume, we can see that. Okay. So we have seen that we've got the blood vessel here. We know the purpose of the blood vessel. For example, an artery. So the artery will transport blood that is rich in oxygen to some tissues, hives everywhere in the body. So now, if at all something happens, there's an occlusion in the blood vessel. An occlusion is more like an obstruction in the blood vessel. So you assume that you've got a pipe, and then in the pipe there is something that is obstructing the pipe, which means that water won't be coming out that side. So that is the scheme. Ischemia is diminished blood supply to the tissue. That is ischemia. So now what happens is that don't forget about oxidative phosphorylation and substrate level phosphorylation. We talked about this in biochemistry last time we met. Dead for yesterday. I mentioned that substrate level phosphorylation is the production of ATP in the absence of oxygen, while oxidative phosphorylation is the production of ATP in the presence of oxygen. Okay, so I explained that I told you that so that you people can connect these things. Ischemia, we are saying that ischemia is the diminished blood supply, or sometimes it is called hypoperfusion. So diminished blood supply to the tissue. So let's assume that this tissue this blood vessel is taking blood to the mitochondria of my muscle tissue. Okay, and we didn't know that we've got glycolysis taking place in the muscle tissue. We've got electron transport chain occurring in the muscle tissue. Okay, we have the NADH and the fat H2 that are being produced from glycolysis. Don't mind those things. Just I want you to understand it in the broad perspective. So you've got ischemia, diminished oxygen supply to the tissue. What happens is that the mitochondria itself. Remember, we said that if there's something that the blood transports is oxygen. So if there's ischemia, there will be hypoxia, definitely. There will be hypoxia, definitely, meaning that there will be also diminished oxygen supply to that tissue. And if you don't have oxygen, remember what we mentioned, oxygen is important in ATP formation and oxidative phosphorylation. So if you don't have ATP, the production, you don't have oxygen, the production of ATP also reduces. Because we are saying that oxygen is needed so that you form energy. We said that hydrogen ions that will be transported by the carriers. We talked about the NADH and the FADH2. These are proton carriers. What happens is that they carry the electrons and take them to the electron transport chain. They react them with oxygen to form water. So now, in case that you don't have oxygen in your blood, there's hypoxia in your blood. What happens is that you are going to have low ATP in your body. Now imagine if you don't have energy, what will happen to your cells? So this diagram summarizes everything. You can write this one in a paper and you get, should be 20 marks because this question came in our paper. It has 20 marks. Explain cell injury. Okay, so you can say cell injury is when the cell fails to adapt, when the cell adapts and then it fails to adapt, it goes to, the injury is progressive, and then what happens is that it fails to adapt. So it can undergo two things. We've talked about reversible and irreversible. So put all those sorts of things in your explanation. So ischemia, no oxygen to the mitochondria, no oxygen, low ATP. Now remember the sodium potassium pumps. The pumps we mentioned that these pumps they require ATP. Now if you don't have oxygen, ATP, what will happen is that those pumps will be malfunction. Okay, those pumps will be malfunction. We talked about anaerobic glycolysis. We said anaerobic glycolysis, this is the type of glycolysis which happens where there is no oxygen. So since you don't have oxygen in your body, the pathway will change. It will be like, no, we don't have how to take these electrons. Let's produce more lactic acid. We talked about that. Meaning that you're going to have anaerobic glycolysis to be dominating instead of aerobic glycolysis. Okay. So now let me start explaining now using the annotation. Okay. So this is the mitochondria A. In the mitochondria, and there we've got what we call the specific structures that you can label, but they are not important right now. This is not biochemistry. Just understand that there is oxidative phosphorylation occurring there, production of ATP in the presence of oxygen. If you don't have oxygen, that oxidative phosphorylation will reduce. If it reduces, meaning that the ATP that will be produced will also reduce. So now, if you don't have enough ATP, we are saying that ATP is important for the pumps. That's what we said. So sodium potassium pump. Remember what we talked about last time? So now we are saying that these pumps will become malfunction. The sodium potassium pump. When they become malfunction, they'll open tirelessly. They won't close. They'll open up. When they open up, they'll be allowing the release of the movement of electrolytes. You'll find that potassium is moving, water will be getting in influx. So now let me show you something. What happens is that we understand this physiology. We know that sodium flows from using the pump. It flows from the inside going to the outside. 2 potassium entering, 3 sodium coming out. And naturally, we know that sodium is highly concentrated on the extracellular part. Okay, let me draw something. Okay, we've got this cell. Okay, don't mind my drawings, otherwise I don't know how to draw. But we have got, we need to know that we've got sodium, which is highly concentrated on the outside of the cell. And then we have got potassium inside. But remember what we said, that naturally things are supposed to be moving from high to low. That's what we say naturally. But due to the pump that we have, sodium potassium pump, which is here, you come to understand that the potassium that is inside the cell, the potassium moves against the concentration gradient. You are going to have potassium entering again, 2 potassium in. So 3 sodium out. 3 sodium out. So this sodium and the potassium are supposed to be moving from high to low, but they move from low to high. Now what happens is that if this pump is not working, it means that those things will be flowing naturally. They'll be entering. Those things that are supposed to be entering, they'll be entering because you have low sodium inside. Potassium is low outside. So it means that you start coming out, there'll be a fluxing of potassium. Okay. Calcium also has the pump. What it means is that if that pump is malfunctioning, it means that the calcium will just be entering the cell. Now, let me tell you something. You need to understand the specific functions of the electrolyte. If we talk about calcium is important in the release of substances because it acts more like, let me put it in this manner. So, but calcium is important in exocytosis or excretion of other substances. It can be neurotransmitters, it can be hormones, it can be proteins. For those proteins or enzymes to be excreted or to be activated, you need calcium in short. Potassium and sodium, these ones they play their role in what we call depolarization or action potential. So if you have more calcium, potassium leaving, because we are saying that this will happen naturally now, because the pump is not working, you are going to have what we call influx of calcium. Whenever sodium is entering, water will also fall. So what will happen at the end of the day, that cell will rupture because of water is entering that cell. So the endoplasmic reticulum swelling, cellular swelling, loss of microbleeds, because there is influx of water and sodium, also calcium is happening. We talked about it. So if potassium is, ATP is low, we said that there will be anaerobic glycolysis occurring because you don't have oxygen there where those proteins are supposed to be put onto. So what will happen is that we are going to have what you call anaerobic glycolysis. If you have anaerobic glycolysis, you are going to have what you call high lactic acid in your blood. High lactic acid in your blood. Therefore, glycogen levels will reduce because the body will get tired of producing the ATP using anaerobic glycolysis. You are going to increase what you call glycogenolysis, the breakdown of glycogen, so that you use up all those glycogen that you have in your stores. And then the pH will reduce. How is the pH going to reduce? We are saying that you are going to form what you call lactic acid in anaerobic glycolysis. You are going to form a lot of lactic acid because this is not aerobic glycolysis. Remember last time we said that glycolysis occurs when there is oxygen. The type of glycolysis that occurs, we said is aerobic. But when there is no oxygen, we said it's anaerobic glycolysis. And we said that the major product of anaerobic glycolysis is lactic acid. So lactic acid, remember, the higher the acid, the lower the pH. So the pH will definitely reduce. Okay. Other effects: detachment of ribosomes, protein synthesis will reduce. Protein synthesis will reduce, lipid deposition will increase. So you're going to have LDL, those lipoproteins. So in short, this is just the pathophysiology of cell injury, and that's how you are supposed to explain it. I don't know if people are clear or not, so that we move. We've answered this question, and it is the only part that I had targeted in the slides. Cell injury, it summarizes everything. So are we together? Any question?
It's clear, Doc. We're together.
Oh, it's clear. You can explain now. Summarize everything I've talked about.
We are primarily discussing cell injury, and what we are actually discussing is that we've picked on ischemia, which is one of the causes of oxygen deprivation, which is also called anoxia. So when oxygen is deprived from a cell, it can cause cell injury, which can either be reversible or irreversible. And you talked about if cells lack oxygen, because we know that a mitochondria is the powerhouse of any cell. So if that mitochondria lacks oxygen, or oxygen is deprived from it, a lot of things will come out of there. Because, for instance, oxidation of phosphorylation, ATP production. If in the absence of oxygen, there is also anaerobic glycolysis, meaning in aerobic there's lack of oxygen. So if in ATP we're going to have anaerobic glycolysis.
Doc, let me just interrupt you there. Doc. Okay, so you've talked about the reduction in ATP production. So what is causing that? Because those are the things that are supposed to be tackling in the conversation. What is happening? What is leading to the low production ATP?
Low production of ATP.
Yes. Yes.
we don't have oxygen, so the body is going to break down the glucose without oxygen,
Yes.
meaning that we have less ATP.
Yes, that's the thing. So when you're explaining, don't forget to mention that you start from ischemia. You know that ischemia, there is an occlusion of blood vessels, so meaning that there will be diminished oxygen supply and blood supply to the tissue. And by the way, so this is what will happen. This is what happens in cellular injuries. When the mitochondria, we talked about two types of glycolysis, and we said these ones, they will lead to production of ATP. We talked about oxidative phosphorylation and substrate level phosphorylation. Substrate level phosphorylation is the one that is occurring because you don't have oxygen. So since you don't have oxygen, enough ATP is gotten from the electron transport chain. Those NADH and fat H2, they're supposed to transport those protons and take them to oxygen. Now that you don't have oxygen, what will happen is that you're going to have a little amount of ATP, and that will lead to malfunctioning of pumps that we have in our body. So when those pumps are not functioning, what will happen is that you're going to have influx of, like I mentioned, sodium naturally is supposed to be, sodium is high outside, while potassium is high inside. But remember what happens to the channel or the pumps. We said these two ions move against each other, like they move against concentration gradient. You find that the sodium, which is supposed to be moving from outside to the inside, it moves from the outside, from the inside going to the outside where it is high. So now if the pump is malfunctioning, what happens is that integrity is disturbed. Therefore, the sodium will start moving from the where it is high concentrated to the where it is low, which is from the outside going into the cell. When it goes into the cell, it will go with water. Potassium will be exchanging with the sodium. We know this because potassium is more inside, so it will move as well on the natural process from high to low. So potassium will be effluxing, while sodium will be influxing. Sodium will go with calcium, and we know the effects of calcium. We said the calcium has got effects on the vesicle. It will activate the enzymes. Those enzymes are called proteolysis. So those proteolysis will go and damage you. They will start attacking the cell itself, damaging the cells because they are proteolysis. They're not supposed to be released at that particular time. Mind you, because of the malfunctioning of the pump, that has triggered the release of proteolysis, and those proteolysis will cause the damaging on the cell membrane and also the cell itself. That is why you're going to have cellular swelling, bursting, loss of microvilli, and all those sorts of stuff. While on the anaerobic part, we said that under anaerobic, you are going to diminish your glycogen because your body is not utilizing glucose well because you don't have oxygen in your body. We talked about producing lactic acid in anaerobic respiration. We said that the final product is lactic acid, and since you are going to have a lot of lactic acid, the acid, the low the pH, so you're going to have low pH in your blood. Third, other effects, detachment of ribosomes because of the same enzymes that have been released. Those enzymes will lead to what you call protein proteolysis. So you're going to protein synthesis will reduce in short because those proteins are supposed to be. You're going to digest a lot of proteins, and then there will be lipid deposition. You're going to have lipid deposition because there will be lipolysis or lipolysis, the breakdown of lipids excessively because of the same effects of enzymes that will be released by calcium. So that's the summary. No outright this essay, please. Don't embarrass us. I've talked about it a lot. And it is not just summarizing everything that I've talked about. So I like that diagram, it's important. So importance of calcium, you can read through. So it activates phospholipases. These are enzymes. Damage the cell membrane. Proteases damage the cell membrane. I've talked about this. So membrane damage, I've talked about everything. Same things here. So the calcium will lead to enzymes secretion. Those enzymes will break down the lipids, break down the cell membrane, break down the proteins that you have, and that will lead to the oasis. Everything that we talked about. Chemical, these are just good examples of chemical agents that cause cell injury. Talk about carbon monoxide, talk about hydrochloric acid, all the acids and other things. Antibiotics, chemical and biological agents. I talked about this. Morphology of cell injury, I've talked about them. All these things, we've summarized everything on that very diagram. Okay. Okay. Are we together now?
Yes, Doc, we're together.
Okay, Cleopatra, are you okay?
Yes.
Madam Patricia Msendo, any question?
No, so far so good.
All right, thank you. How about Baemi the band? She's not there, Madam Toel. How is it?
It's fine.
Okay, thanks. So you are going to explain what is the pathophysiology of cell injury? Because you'll be asked this question and you will be asked this question and you need to explain it very well. So don't forget to talk about 3 things: anaerobic glycolysis, talk about ATP reduction, talk about the malfunctioning of pumps, and also talk about the detachment of liposomes and lipolysis, proteolysis. All those are happening because of the calcium and also the sodium that has been disturbed in their integrity. So we've talked about cell injury. So we are going to the edema, congestion, and other stuff in the second session. This one is finished. Thank you so much, and please join as fast as possible. All right.
I request you go through the patterns of necrosis. Are you going through or you have done enough already?
There's a video already. You can check it through from the Telegram.
All right.
Sure.